science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Beekeeping salutations, Cognodocs. I'm Mike, and welcome to Exofathom. I'm joined with my two lovely co-hosts, Nick and Ayla. How's it going this Friday?
Wonderfully. How are you?
Hanging in there, How's it going, Ayla?
I was going to be the one to say hanging in there this time. But yes, same. It's Spooky Friday the 13th, which is kind of fun. It being at 2020, I was a little bit prepared for some shenanigans, but I'm alive. It's okay.
My dog knocked my coffee out of my hand.
That is some shenanigans.
Damn you, Friday the 13th.
Oh, man.
Well, it was really funny because she was trying to be cuddly, and it was like a really happy moment that turned south very quickly because we just mopped that floor.
Oh, yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Well, that seems like some pretty mild shenanigans for Friday the 13th, though. There's
Very
no,
mild.
No Camp Crystal Lake or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
Oh, cool. Today I kind of wanted to talk about alternate reality games and their implications, I guess, and their actual uses, because they're pretty useful in like education and I guess some other words like you can use them to base or to ground conspiracy theories that you and I were talking about earlier, Nick, like right before the show. But what are your guys' experiences with alternate reality games?
Are you talking like RDR2?
No, that's just a video game.
Yeah. So we have zero experience there.
Nick? Well,
Yes.
we were talking. We were talking just a minute ago. I was trying to get a grasp for what you had in mind as far as alternate reality games, and we kind of I mentioned the Cicada 443, or is that what it's called?
Cicada 3301.
There we go, 3301, which is kind of like a cryptography puzzle that's been on the internet for quite some time.
That just seems like you were saying, like just recruitment tools.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into the differences between there is a slight difference, I think, between Cicada 3301 and ARGs like I Love Bees and Marble Hornets and Every Man a Hybrid. That's just nonsense. We'll get down into it a bit.
Question. Will we talk about why so many insect names? Cicadas, bees.
I think it's just a coincidence.
Well, there might be some cultural ties to bugs. Like compute, because there's the base culture for ARGs is the internet, and they do tend to be a little nerdy, and so like I can see where someone like, oh, this is like a bug in my mind. If this puzzles that have become a bug, and so they use the bug.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. I'm excited. I have none of that rings any bells, so I'm like, woo, ready for the ride.
Cool. So basic definition. An alternate reality game, ARG, is an interactive networked narrative that uses the real world as a platform and employs transmedia storytelling to deliver a story that may be altered by players' ideas or actions. The form is designed by intense player involvement with a story that takes place in real time and evolves according to players' responses. Subsequently, it is shaped by characters that are actively controlled by the game's designers, as opposed to being controlled by an algorithm, as in a computer or console video game. Players interact directly with characters in the game, solve plot-based challenges and puzzles, and collaborate as a community to analyze the story and coordinate real-life and online activities. ARGs generally use multimedia, such as telephones, emails, and mail, but rely on the internet as a central binding medium, which is like why I was thinking like all the obsession with bugs may be related to like computer culture.
I
So
could see that.
has that cleared up ARGs just a little bit, or should I keep going?
Well, I'm still kind of stuck on the RDR2 because, if you were to play the online version of it, you can have time play with other people out there that will then change
The
how the game
biggest
reacts and what you do.
the biggest difference is that our alternate reality games interact with the real world, not just inside a video game.
My mental jaw just dropped. What?
So we're gonna go. We'll get a bit clearer. So I'm gonna define some roles and then like a very, I guess, an easier definition, because there's like even in the Wikipedia article, it says like there's a great deal of debate surrounding the characteristics by which the term alternate reality game should be defined. Sean Stacy, the founder of the website Unfiction, has suggested the best way to define the genre was not to define it, and instead locate each game on 3 axes: rule set, authorship, and coherence in a sphere of chaotic fiction. I like the sound of chaotic fiction. Before I
Yeah,
jump
that's
into
a pretty cool name.
like the different roles and basic design mechanisms, any questions?
That's kind of like a new tattoo consideration, or I don't know. I need to do something with that. Maybe we can make a shirt.
Wait,
Chaotic
there's more.
fiction. Ah!
There's more.
Okay, but real question though. Is this kind of like those choose your own adventure novels, but like digified?
In real life. So imagine like if we were playing the game, or we were playing a game, I am talking to you as an actor, as a character, and I'm going to use your responses to what we're talking about to make the next part of the game that takes place in the real world.
Okay, this is low key freaking me out. I'm gonna just listen to the next bit.
Right. So we're gonna define some roles and some mechanics to this whole thing. So first, and maybe the most important, I don't know, we have the puppet master. A puppet master, or PM, is an individual involved in designing and or running an ARG. Puppet masters are simultaneously allies and adversaries to the player base, creating obstacles and providing resources for overcoming them in the course of telling the game's story. Puppet masters generally remain behind the curtain while the game is running. The real identity of puppet masters may or may not be known ahead of time. We have the curtain. The curtain, drawing from the phrase, "pay no attention to the man behind the curtain," is generally a metaphor for the separation between the puppet masters and the players. This can take the traditional form of absolute secrecy regarding the puppet masters' identities and involvement with the production, or refer merely to the convention that puppet masters do not communicate directly with the players through the game, interacting instead through characters and the game's design. The next up, we have the rabbit hole or trailhead. A rabbit hole or trailhead marks the first media artifact, be it a website, contact, or puzzle, that draws in players. Most ARGs employ a number of trailheads in several media to maximize the probability of people discovering the game. Typically, the rabbit hole is a website, most easily updated and cost-effective option. Now with YouTube, you can make the argument that, because like I found a lot of ARGs through YouTube and Twitter, but anyways, next one is This Is Not a Game, TINAG. Setting the ARG form apart from other games is this is not a game sentiment popularized by the players themselves. It is the belief that one of the main goals of the ARG is to deny and disguise the fact that it is even a game at all. Due to the factors like the curtain, attempts to begin games with stealth launches to fulfill the TINAG aesthetic, and their restrictive non-disclosure agreements governing how much information may be revealed by the puppet masters of promotional games, the design process for many ARGs is often shrouded in secrecy, making it difficult to discern the extent to which they have been influenced by other works. In addition, the cross-media nature of the form allows ARGs to incorporate elements of so many other art forms and works that attempting to identify them all would be nearly impossible. So, any questions about like some of these roles and mechanics used to make up this ARG, or like can we start to see where like the notion of like a conspiracy theory can be made for a giant alternate reality game?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when I was listening to you say that, and not to get too much into the conspiracies, but this all sounds like QAnon. I know that that's very curt, but it like it sounds exactly like what the QAnon phenomenon is.
So
It's
like
this like curated narrative that is not a game, that is like, the rabbit holes and the breadcrumbs and the media being a part of it, Yeah.
yep. Now we are getting onto some threads of experimental learning, because yeah, you're right. It does sound like QAnon, but it is gamification.
Mm.
And of course, learning is just picking up knowledge. Whether or not the knowledge is good or bad, that's up to the learner to decide. But we are getting into places where you will see crazy amount of dedication and a crazy amount of active participation and learning from people from players uh, that take a part of the game.
Mm.
So
Well,
like go for it, Ayla.
oh no, I was just I was gonna go in a different route, so I will hold my thought.
So quick example of some of this dedication. Halo 2 had an ARG called I Love Bees. And a part of the game was a set of coordinates. Like after you figured out some clues, you got some coordinates and a date. And on a date, this thing was going to happen. No one knew. But on these days, people would go out to these coordinates and just look for anything on hours on end. It ended up being a payphone that would ring. On one particular day, there's a Hurricane Ivan, and the puppet master called the payphone that was at the coordinates, because the coordinates ended up pointing to a payphone, and somebody actually answered it in the middle of a hurricane. And the puppet master had to tell him, like, dude, it's a hurricane, put the phone down, go home. But that's the sort of dedication that these games make. You actually see it on the education front, with kids. Like a few lives ago, I was a summer counselor, and we had a day where they had to do a scavenger hunt, but they didn't really have much to learn. It was just sort of like make your own scavenger hunt. So I was able to teach them how to like draw a grid system on like a Google Earth map photo and use that as part of the scavenger hunt. But the fact that I was able to disguise it as a game for the scavenger hunt allowed them to learn the ability to draw a grid or like make a map. And the student engagement on it was like, even the students that were troublemakers wanted to hop in. And I had like a pair of twins, like that were like, or not a pair, I had one group of twins. Anyways, like, but they were kind of troublemakers, like third grade or so, and they were super excited and even shared a little photo of the map. So like these things can be super useful and very addictive.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I think
there
that,
is like this thing of secrecy.
yes. Well, I think that there's something that it touches on multiple things. It touches on the need for community within people, and so especially a community with shared interest becomes very powerful, and people tend to gravitate towards that. And to me, it kind of like, I kind of think of like ARGs now as kind of like a expression of the hive mind almost, which is kind of cool because in a lot of respects, it's not about one person figuring it all out. It's about a collaborative effort, pardon me, among multiple people, sometimes even thousands or, more than that, trying to figure out bits of information. And now sometimes when they gamify it to a point where there needs to be a winner, there will be breakaway. But in a lot of the early stages of this type of stuff, you see a lot of collaboration to try to get the rules and parameters understood by all. So yeah, I think there's something interesting about utilizing the sort of like collective consciousness that is the internet, to execute a goal, even if the goal is just, a marketing ploy.
There are, well, I can roll into the design principles because there is consideration for the hive mind.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, before you do, though, I just wanted to appreciate these terms, or just the kind of like, yeah, like the pillars here, because, to have a rabbit hole or trailhead, it's almost as if that is a part of the selection process, that you're trying to attract people who are looking for something else, or attracted by something else. From what I understand, I'm thinking of like, when you look up something and then you click on a footnote and then you go down in like this rabbit hole of information, you're just kind of absorbing. And then I think that the idea of like having a curtain and a puppet master, these are really attractive concepts, just like I think for humans, because, there's always this question in the back of your mind, like, oh, like, is everything I'm seeing at face value? And especially if you've had your like instincts proven wrong in the past, there's just that inquisitive nature. Um, and then like, yeah, to have like a puppet master, someone behind the scenes and it's game, but it's not a game. I think these are just kind of like fun ideas to toy with. But again, I don't have much, like I don't have anything to anchor these to. So I'm going to continue my listening because I'm interested to hear about these design principles next.
Well, yeah. Just to touch on that for a sec, um, I think that humanity and humans in general, just we don't really need a lot of reason to go into alternate realities. So to what you were saying, Ayla, I think that there is definitely a craving um, for humans and escapism, and perhaps an augmentation to what they consider perhaps a dull reality.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I mean, especially think about how humans, we think we're humans, but we're still also very animalistic, and there's this desire to live a little bit more on the wild side. And to me, wild is the unknown, adventure, something scary. These things are a little attracted to us because, like you said, they're out of the ordinary, and especially if you're kind of like, I don't know. If you don't get a lot of excitement in your day to day, if you're working two jobs all the time, it is nice to let your mind wander about things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or
let's
maybe
move
I'm
on to the next
totally
one.
off. I
I
don't
think
know.
those are no, looks well said. Like the ability, like there's like 5 sub processes stopping all at once.
It's Friday, man.
There's Friday the 13th.
Ah,
There is I think it's a saying by a poet or by a philosopher that goes, if if your life is so boring that you can't write a poem every day, then you shouldn't write poetry. And the idea is that like if your world, like if you can't kind of spruce up your world, then you have no like you have no space to write anything. And like these
I
alternate
hear
reality
that
games might
totally.
allow you to start to shift things slightly, right? You
Hmm.
start to build a little bit more of that creativity in your mind, or however you want to spin it.
Hmm.
Well, and
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I was just going to add, Thoreau also says, before you can sit down to write, you must stand up to live. Part of why I have not written my magnum opus yet, but I get it. There's this desire to go experience things, and a full range of things too.
What is it? Bukowski also says young men shouldn't write poetry. Like you should do anything else but write poetry. Just do anything else.
Well, I imagine the poetry you write in your younger years is going to be very different from the poetry you write in your older years. Personally, I think they would both be valid, but I think they'd also be very difficult or very different. And I think Bukowski very much liked his like older, distinguished look back. And I don't know. I should read some more of his stuff. He's got like a vibe to him that does not say like young kid vibe, is what I mean to say.
I know he's a pretty good read, but who would want to be such an asshole? Um, but what are you gonna say, Nick? You gonna add
oh
something
no,
in there?
no, I forgot. It's all good. Go ahead.
It was
Design.
about the poetry, I think.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Back to the trailhead.
Okay.
So, some basic design principles. ARGs are sometimes described as the first narrative art form native to the internet because their storytelling relies on two main activities conducted there: searching for information and sharing information. First off is storytelling as archaeology. Instead of presenting a chronologically unified, coherent narrative, designers scatter pieces of the story across the internet and other media, allowing players to reassemble it, supply connective tissue, and determine what it means. Platformless narrative. Stories are not bound to a single medium, but exist independently and use whatever media is available to make itself heard. Designing for a hive mind. While it might be possible to follow games individually, designs are directed at a collective of players that share information and solutions almost instantly and incorporate individual processing, almost every conceivable area of expertise. While games might initially attract a small group of participants, as the participants come across new challenges, they try to find others with the knowledge needed to overcome an obstacle. A whisper is sometimes louder than a shout. Rather than openly promoting games and trying to attract participants by pushing it by pushing it towards potential players, designers attempt to pull players to the story by engaging in over-the-top secrecy, have elements of the game that warn players away from them, and eschew traditional marketing channels. Designers do not communicate about the game with players or press while it is in play. This is not a game aesthetic. ARGs themselves do not acknowledge that they are games. They do not have acknowledged rule set for players. As in real life, they determine the rules either through trial and error by setting their own boundary, or trial and error, or by setting their own boundaries. Narratives present a fully realized world. Any phone number or email address mentioned works, and any website acknowledged exists. Games take place in real time and are not replayable. Characters function like real people, not game pieces, respond authentically, and are controlled by real people, not by computer AI. Some events involve meetings or live phone calls between players and actors. Real life as a medium. Games use players' lives as a platform. Players are not required to build a character or roleplay, being someone other than themselves. They might unexpectedly overcome a challenge for the community simply because of their real life knowledge and background they possess. Participants are constantly on the lookout for clues embedded in everyday life. Collaborative storytelling. While the puppet masters control most of the story, they incorporate player content, respond to players' actions, analysis, and speculation by adapting the narrative and intentionally leave white space for the players to fill in. Not a hoax. While the TINAG aesthetic might seem on the surface to be an attempt to make something indistinguishable from real life, they are both subtle and overt meta communications in place to reveal a game's framework and most of its boundaries. And so those are sort of just the overall, like the design principles. And again, like this is not a game and not a hoax comes up over and over again. I do like a whisper sometimes louder than a shout. Like it seems like they have like catchy little slug lines to everything. But
Yeah.
what do you think of these principles? Like,
I mean, I think they were curated by marketing, and it makes a lot of sense. But there's something that kind of like there's something just intrinsic to the internet that I feel about these types of things, and I know that they do bleed into real life and then other mediums. But payphones are exceedingly more and more rare nowadays, and physical traversing is becoming more and more rare. So I see a lot of this as kind of like an extension of the internet, really. I mean, I think of forums, and I think of, like you could go to a forum right now and ask a question about whatever, and within minutes you'll have the answer. So I think there's a lot of humanistic sort of things and themes that go on with these things, and it kind of tickles our need to build myth and create community and problem solve. And so it's all really kind of nicely curated together to be the ultimate adventure. And I think that that's something that people definitely crave.
Yeah. When I think about all these different principles, it almost feels as if it's a lens that you are creating, and you can apply the lens to pretty much anything, which is why it can evoke these like conspiratorial themes. It can make you think of like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like certain movies where you have like a world and then you find out at the end there's like a world outside of it. So it just seems to me as if it's kind of a cool way to view things from this very specific lens. But beyond that, I had another thought, but it's kind of escaping me right now. It had something to do with the not a hoax one. I lost it, but it's interesting.
Well, the suspension of disbelief is the only way these things can actually occur.
And that's what it was. It was so years ago I studied it was like a psychology class, and there's a bunch of different segments. I can't remember what the overarching class was, but there was like a whole module on influence and control. And so it's kind of interesting because I bet if you took the different principles for like, yeah, mind control, groupthink, culty principles, and then kind of aligned it with this, there could be some overlap. For instance, like the collaborative storytelling, there's a lot of like instances where, let's see, like if you were going, well, I don't want to give a how-to on how to build a cult, but there's there's a lot to be said for having certain characters that are really dynamic and personable that draw in other, in this case you could call them users, to also then keep building on that momentum, and creating that like attractability of like, word of mouth spread.
I wonder sometimes if these are just little simulations of reality. You know what I mean? Like if we're thinking about the like the concept of these alternate reality games mimicking so much of what it goes on in our daily lives and just the human experience, it's kind of just like adding a layer of game function over the existing layer of game function. Almost, it's just like an enhancement and a little simulated recreation of the more archetypical aspects of our society.
Like I mean, I wonder if ARGs are not something like, basically you're saying they're discovered, right? They're not really invented. Like we kind of play these games already. Is that what you're saying? And like we kind of added this.
Well, yeah. When I think of this ARG concept and these rules, it's like, they very closely mimic the society in which we function in as humans.
Yes.
Like we all have to play our roles. We all have information to contribute to this grand design of this, puppet master in the sky with a beard who doesn't tell us what the meaning of this whole thing is. And, we all have to kind of just agree that we're going to aim towards a goal and work together collaboratively for it. And, there are many layers in between that, but these alternate reality games are kind of like little bite-sized microcosms of what the macro already is.
Yeah, I think there's a difference of awareness though, right? Like if you're in an ARG and you're presented, if you're like the puppet master of the ARG, you're presented with a piece of information from one of the players, right? So let's disregard like the ARG for a second and say we are in a company and you're an employee and you're talking to the CEO that's like 12 levels above you, right? So there's like 12 levels of different information that, why did I get 12 from? Oh, it's on the screen. 12 different layers of information difference. And so when you go and talk to the CEO and you have an idea and you say something, right? For the most part, it might seem like you get rejected or like you may have some influence. But in an ARG, if you find the puppet master, you go talk to the puppet master, you may shift that whole story drastically, right? So I think you're right. It is a microcosm, but I think it's a bit more of a volatile simulation.
Well, the ultimate puppet master isn't necessarily the CEO. The ultimate puppet master is whatever created this reality we're living in currently.
Sure, but I'm trying to break the microcosm down even further, down to something that we see on a day to day, where we can at least eliminate the variable of God or God's intentions, or all of that our philosophical argumentative mess of just trying to keep it a bit more controlled to a game that humans play with humans.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think you're right. Like I definitely see this as like a gaming layer on top of what's already there, but with a little bit more freedom, because you can break reality a bit more, right? Because now you're dealing with social media profiles, you're dealing with your own social media profile, which carries a lot of weight nowadays, right? And if you're playing an ARG and you're not supposed to tell anyone, what can differentiate the alternate reality from whatever reality you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Are there any ARGs that you're supposed to keep secret, though? I mean,
You're just not supposed to know that exists.
that
It's
is
a game.
that it's a game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And secret societies you can almost view as ARGs where it's supposed to be secret, right?
Yeah.
Where
Well, I
the
mean,
players become puppet masters in a sense or something.
I mean, definitely. There's, and that's where I think the parallels to conspiracy can definitely run pretty deep, because really, we're talking about the great and powerful Oz, right? So the puppet master is the man behind the curtain, which is just an archetype for the people that steer or move the cogs of society. And if you take that, extrapolate that farther, then you have deity or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see where these are just expressions of things that are happening constantly around us, in a more controlled and probably more curated way, obviously, because I think life is a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, you're trying to do a little bit more of a controlled chaos type thing, like
Yeah.
detonations and things like that. Ayla, did you have anything? Or I'm going to try to, I guess,
Well, I guess it's just
ground it a little bit more if it's not grounded enough.
Yeah, grounding would be good. I guess it's just for me, it's I'm just yeah. I guess I'm just wondering like where like the first ARG. Like for me it's like it's always good to know the history and like how it developed and where it came from. But if they're all secretive, then you don't really know. And so yeah, I mean for me it's like I operate in the understanding that truth exists in closed systems. But here it's an open system with a debatable truth, which is a little uncomfortable. But I'm open to hearing more.
Yeah. So not the first, but my favorite one is I Love Bees. I've brought it up multiple times. So its origins was a Halo 2 marketing thing, and it was a story that was mainly outside of Bungie, and they were able to make it where I mostly grab hold onto it or understand it was from one of the trailheads that I found was remember when iRobot came out? Like, yeah. In the movies, they had a trailer for Halo 2. And then at the very end of the trailer, the URL underneath the Xbox logo flickers out for a second and then says ilovebees.com and then comes back. The website actually existed before this, and there was an earlier trailhead, but I didn't find out. So you go to ilovebees.com, and it looks like it's a website that has been taken over by something. It's just a messed up website. And there's somebody who's asking for help to fix that website. And there's a countdown towards something. And a bunch of the community members try to help, and you start to find clues that are hidden within images. So within the actual text source of the image file, there was plain English clues. They started to find like little tiny audio logs. And then once this countdown happened, and all the parts were kind of like pieces of this little story were coming together about this AI who was fragmented, and how this thing called the Pious Flea was searching for something. and how this other AI called there's another AI called Spider. There's the Sleeping Princess. There was the Operator, which is a different AI. And so once this countdown happened, all these like coordinate systems popped up, and that's where all the payphones happened. And you're able to get audio logs, which filled in the story, or different parts of the story, which end up coming together to be about the Covenant invasion of Earth. But what it told was that before there was a ship running away that was crash landing, and due to either an explosion of some ancient advanced alien technology with the net lore or something else, a fragment of the AI, a 6-year-old version of the AI got sent back in time. And so it's trying to reconstitute itself. While this spy AI is trying to destroy it and pull information out. It's actually called The Seeker. And so you get
People know this is a game, right? I mean, because it's like the this is not a game concept. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just
no.
It's so
it becomes
fun.
obvious that you're in a game, like, but you keep you don't break character, right? You keep to the idea that this is not a game, and so it all ends with the Covenant invading the Earth, and then on the I Love B site, which is still up now, there's a timer going down for 500 years because the story takes place in 2554. So there's a timer from now, or 2004 till 2554, I think, or something like that. So it's still up and it's still running. It still holds the idea that this may not be a game, and in 500 years from now, this is the super intelligent AI that wakes up or something.
Yeah, but you know, someone's still got to pay that domain fee. So that means that whoever actually created it, they have to have some sort of like amazing like trust fund to pay all the
money.
all the
Microsoft.
support
I'm sure
for all that time.
they could run a website for 500 years. I'm sure they're fine.
I'm sure, they're the one hosting it. They don't got to pay nothing.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I'm
right?
cracking up that you would even go to that website and see that it's all messed up and be like, let me just keep going. I'd be like, nope, phishing scam, done, click. I wouldn't even venture towards anything else.
So you got to be a bit curious.
Nope.
But
I like my apps
where, like,
to work.
Player intents, right? Like, so it's all the or intense player experience, but it's all the sparse data that has to be brought together to create this one narrative about an AI that was just a marketing tool. A great story though, but a marketing tool for another story. And it was so well done that it got somebody to stand out in the middle of a hurricane. A gamer, mind you, to stand out in the middle of a hurricane and answer a phone.
That's messed up though, because whoever the puppet master was like, oh, hey, let me just call this thing. And then the person picks up and they're like, haha, why would you pick up? It's a hurricane. Like, you just risked somebody's life. Like, he wouldn't have been out there if the phone wasn't ringing. Stupid puppet master.
That's his job.
I think that's dumb. They
should
No, he should have won like a $500 gift card or something. I mean, like, you need to reward that kind of level of dedication.
Well, at the end, they all got to play Halo 2 early, and they got like a free early version of Halo 2.
Fair enough. I knew there was something.
I stayed up all night outside a fucking Blockbuster to get Halo 2.
Oh,
then I played it at 3:00 in the morning, and was kind of disappointed in it. if I'm being 100% honest, I don't know. Is that the one where you were able to dual wield or no?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, that was the first dual wielding. They hadn't perfected the dual wielding. So, but yeah, I remember definitely.
You camped out, though. That's so cute.
I didn't really camp out. I just waited outside of a Blockbuster till midnight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Still kind of cute, though. You waited in a line.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just too impatient.
That was the first game I ever pre-ordered. And then I left. My mom picked me up early from school.
And it was a big deal. Yeah.
Pick it up.
Yeah, it was a very big deal.
It was a huge game.
What's interesting to me is that there's not more of these, and I know that there's like smaller versions of this going on. The show Westworld does this a lot, so in the universe of Westworld, the major corporation that kind of owns and runs everything is called Delos, and you're able to go to their website. And they throw Easter eggs in there. And in the shows, they'll have like Easter eggs that if you can find, like, or certain coordinates or certain messages to be a password or whatever, then you're kind of rewarded with extra bits of information. I always thought it was a cool idea, but I just think that it doesn't, unless I'm missing it entirely, which I probably am. It just doesn't seem like there's much of a maybe there isn't much of a business side to it anymore, but perhaps it's now become about, you know, players creating worlds and then doing it for just the love of the game.
Yeah, I think it's you have to enjoy puzzle creation, story creation. There's a lot of things you have to enjoy to make like a well-made ARG, and the risk, the marketing risk, right? Like, why would why would I want to show you some sort of weird cryptic advertisement that doesn't make any sense to you? Because I want you to go online and figure out what the Morse code is, or what the hex code is, or what the
that only 100 people are going to get, when you could just plug it on the TV and millions of people will watch.
Yeah, and like for those millions of people, you have to make something that is digestible, right? You have to make something that's going to turn ad money. It's going to make money for you. So like that's where it's been kind of pushed off to the side with respect to marketing, but it's something that engages a hardcore audience. So like if your audience or your fan base tends to be a bit more hardcore, I think it's something you could experiment and see some pretty good engagement.
Well, and I think there's something to be said about internet communities being intrinsically powerful problem solvers. And I think that that's just kind of like the hive mind aspect that we were talking about earlier. You know, you have the forums, you know, whether it's Reddit or 4chan or whatever. I mean, the things that they can pull off when they are all on one focused, you know, objective is incredible. It's incredible. So I mean, like, it's really a testament to the collective human consciousness, for sure.
Like when 4chan collectively read the stars to find Shia LaBeouf's flag to pull it down.
Yes,
The
exactly.
He Not Divide Us flag.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a, you read the stars and you have somebody who's local to the area drive out there honking their horn so you can hear it through the stream.
Yeah.
And then you're in constant communication with that person to tell them, yep, nope, make a left. You're getting louder. You're getting up there. It is.
Right.
And those are strangers.
They're all strangers that are, yeah.
Well, it's like that documentary too, Don't F with Cats, because it's like the lady, she and like it was like some unsolved murderer started with killing cats and then escalated, but it was unsolved. And like this lady sees it. I don't know how it happened, but it's like she's on a forum and like a whole bunch of people are analyzing these photos that got open to the press, and then they were like, oh, I think because the killer was giving videos or something, and so like they would zoom in and be like, oh, that's a really unusual shoe, let's find out what type of shoe that is. And then they they basically caught him because they were just
they created an ARG out of it, basically.
Yeah, for hours every day they would just be on the internet trying to figure out like every little clue. And I mean, it was impressive to be true. Like,
it's called weaponized autism.
Yep.
It's true.
Well, I wouldn't say they were all autistic, but they definitely had a lot of like.
Of course they're focus. Not. That's an internet colloquialism for the power of investigation on forums.
Specifically for I think it's 4chan made after like the whole Antifa thing. Like after they found the padlock guy.
Right, exactly. The bike clock guy.
Clock, that worked, man. Because like they had to pull together hundreds, probably not thousands, of images from that day.
Well, okay, so like there's that. Then, I mean, like, okay, so if you were an actor on Game of Thrones and you were really displeased with the way that it all ended, couldn't you just like, pool it and create an ARG to leak a totally better ending?
They did that a lot. If you
Did
were
they?
on any of the if you were on any of the Game of Thrones forums, there were plenty of rewrites of the seasons.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, rewrites, but I'm talking about like something more along the lines of like I Love Bees, where you can kind of like, yeah, like only the most diehard fans that were super unpleased with the last season would be able to get this like beautiful treasure of a new story.
Well, no, but
You could.
they weren't getting. They could have done that, but they wouldn't have.
They should have.
It's
They should have.
it's been cool. It'd just be nice not to see any Starbucks cups. So,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, right? Dude. They got real lazy in that season. Sorry, not to go there, but
Yeah.
well, I see in your notes a little bit here about an academic take on ARGs.
yeah, so that's where I kind of wanted to like we're getting to like the experimental learning, and like I've kind of been um oh whoa case study. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to keep touching on this idea that like from what I've seen is significant student engagement with these things, and like an aptitude to learn, or a willingness to learn more at a faster rate because it's dropped into a game. But it's very much experimental learning, and like to gamify education uh, is kind of like a weird conversation to have. Like my initial thoughts on it was to like kind of treat it like treat a classroom like an RPG. Give different kids different roles that end up helping other students in the class like solve problems on tests or something like that. Nobody fails. You just have a leveling system. If you don't meet a certain level, then you can't go to the next grade, but you keep the same level that you were at when you repeat. So you could have a higher chance of this time going up to the next level. Anyways, but you can definitely do that. And I think it's I don't know how much research there is on it. Like the last time I did any research on it was 21. That was like 8 years ago. Um,
I don't
but
know. It kind of
it's
just
no, go for it.
I was just gonna say it sounds like a group project, and as a Virgo, I am staunchly against group projects. They never go the way you want them to.
Well, you can always like you curate the ARG for both the individual and the hive. Like you're taking into account the individual process and the hive mind. So like the more introverted kids, they can still have roles too within the game where they don't have to be as collaborative or as much in the group, so to say, if they don't want to be.
I see.
But it's very much considered experimental learning. And the only chances that I have had to implement it is in a summer school or a summer counseling type environment, and they have worked well for me. Like I didn't have to discipline as many kids, I didn't have to tell them to pay attention, didn't have to like they bought the game hard, and that's all you need to have for a user to do is just to buy the game.
It makes me wonder if we can just find a way to add an extra layer onto other things too. Because if children are much pardon me, if children are much more apt to learn and learn quickly when you have a gamified system, then why aren't we doing this across the board in society? You know, like there should be an added layer for a lot more things than just education, in my opinion. Because if you're able to gamify things in a way that people accept it better, easier, and actually thrive in it, then that's something we should look at as a society for sure.
Are you
I
sure
would
we
agree.
haven't already? Dun, dun, dun. No, I'm
who
just
We
knows?
kidding.
already are. This game sucks. There's no, I definitely do agree, but there's a little bit of issue when you try to tell parents you're teaching their kid a game. Like so, like one of the summer school or the summer classes that I taught were Minecraft, and I had to like one of the parents came up to me and she was just like, "Yeah, I just bring my kid here because I don't want him playing Minecraft when we go home. So this he gets it all out now." And I had to show her like some of the stuff we were doing with it was Red Brick, but it basically acts like a digital version of like wires. So you can teach them light electrical engineering. You can teach them logic gates and NOR and OR gates, all within a game. So they're starting to learn literally college level logic type shit through a game and enjoying it. And I had to show the parents that, and they kind of like things started to click a little bit that maybe this game, like games aren't all bad. Like this weird idea from the 80s and 90s that video games are the worst thing on this earth or something. But being able to do that kind of started to build the bridge. But I can see where parents and even government officials would be like, we're not turning school into a game. They already have video games. They already play enough. Why should we frame education like this?
Well, then that's when you say you're not turning school into game, you're gamifying education. You know, like it's not actually a game. It's you're learning the same things that you would learn if you were sitting in front of a chalkboard. It's just that you're acting these things out, you know?
Yeah.
And that's much easier to learn. That's a much easier method in which for children can learn than to just sit them in front of a chalkboard and drone on about, you know, whatever.
I would agree. Like I can't, like that retention rate. Like if you have a problem set of like 100 problems and you're like 7, you're not gonna want to do 100 problems. You're not gonna learn anything after the first 10, right?
Yeah, definitely.
No, I would agree. Like gamifying is good.
Yeah, well, I remember as a kid, I was trying to learn how to type, like, you know, fast. And it was gamified in that, like, I couldn't teach myself until this game was introduced. And it was this little lobster that would crawl across your screen as like over a sentence. And so your job was to type up the sentence faster than the little lobster. And he would be really mean, like, ha ha ha, slowpoke. Was yours a cat? Mine was a lobster. Yeah. And it was really fun because I was very motivated to type faster. I did not learn how to use all fingers. I'm really good at the middle 3 fingers on each hand. I still type like that today, but I'm hella fast. So yeah, I mean, I think that like there's still maybe should be some structure, but I think like you can definitely teach very specific, like Nick's playing this game right now about traveling the universe. What's it called? No Man's Sky?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like there's like elementals in it. And I'm like, oh, you could totally teach chemistry and certain like, yeah, I mean, like you could build that entire game around the periodic table of elements, about predictability of interaction elements and all that kind of stuff. And quite easily teach people basic chemistry, which apparently is really hard. But.
Yeah. I remember that I had to play that stupid typing game before I was able to play Oregon Trail.
You're still resentful.
I am resentful.
Oregon Trail.
Everybody, and I was terrible at typing. So the thing is like so it was like you had to do your typing exercise and then you could play Oregon Trail. So all the fast typers got to play Oregon Trail within like 5-10 minutes at most. And here I am like 20 minutes in. I'm like, I just can't finish this. So I'd always get really little amount of time on Oregon Trail. I was very sad.
Which I don't understand why Oregon Trail was so attractive as a kid. Because like I think I saw like a YouTube video.
It was just something on a computer, and they were like, hey, this is science and technology. We'll give it to the kids. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like, hey, there's a river. You could either go around it or you could was it like
jump right into it.
Yeah, but they used a weird word like caulk your boat or something like that. And like it was like floating your wagon so it goes across the river and yeah.
Does it all end in dysentery?
Always.
Kind of, or a rattlesnake bite.
Well,
I wonder if that's why millennials are so like, let's go to the forest, let's go hiking.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Oregon Trail nostalgia.
So they can die of dysentery.
Well, okay, maybe not that, but
all right.
I'm all out of ARG stuffs.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mike. That was a great conversation and interesting because I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of juicy stuff in that, and that would be probably something I think we might be bringing up again in future conversations related to tech and related to how we kind of operate in this space. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. And Mike, if somebody wanted to learn more about ARG after listening to, where might they go?
Yeah, great call.
Go to ilovebees.com and
There you
start
go.
to have fun.
Play one of the OGs. Yeah, awesome.
I would, real quick though, if you kind of want like not just a me pointing you in a direction, there's a YouTuber named Nightmind who does videos on Marble Hornets, who does videos on Every Man a Hybrid, who does a really great job at tying all of these threads together in ARGs. There's also another YouTuber that does a series called Deep Cuts and about I Love V's if you want to find that in a structured way. However, I would advise you at first to just explore ilovebees.com. Like, you won't get the experience because the ARG is over, but you can at least see the aftermath and kind of get a feel for it, and then just play around.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you enjoyed this conversation. If you want to leave us some feedback, please do so, whether it's a comment, whether it's a hate message, whether it's a like. Please consider following us. Hey, this is the internet, man.
Guy.
You gotta be
an asshole.
You gotta be okay with all things.
Some feedback is nice, but no hate messages, please.
Yeah,
I say no.
Okay, well,
I mean, hey, if you have to spread it
the fact
somewhere,
that you said no, hold on. The fact that you said no is going to bring a lot more hate than the fact that I say, hey, go ahead and hate us. All right.
I conceded. I said, hey, if you have it in your heart, fine, just lay it on us. It's better than it being out in the world. That's fine.
Anyways,
we can take it.
Okay. Can I finish?
What just
Ayla, is that okay?
I'm sorry.
All right.
Please continue.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Thanks, guys, for listening. We really appreciate it. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube, all at Exofathom. And let us know if you have any ideas for us in the future. We will be back Monday night at 8 p.m. as always. Other than that, thank you guys so much. And until next time, Cognonauts, we will catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Later.